One nuclear weapon.
Bank of England unveils new notes, reveals notes will enter circulation by mid-2024. Ukrainian president visits the United States, seeks more support. Also, British judiciary gives note to deportation of illegal migrants in UK. Of course, these are not just the issues of discuss on this episode of Global Update, as we take you around the world on issues and happenings of concern. I am Patricia A. Samiluba. Welcome to the program Global Update. Merry Christmas, and may the blessings of the season stay with us. Do stay back. I'll be back in a moment. British judiciary has given a go-ahead for deportation of illegal migrants to Rwanda after months of suspension.
The British judiciary has given the green light to the deportation to Rwanda of asylum seekers who arrived illegally into the United Kingdom, a highly controversial project that the government wants to deploy as soon as possible. The Conservatives have made the fight against illegal immigration one of the promises of Brexit, one of their priorities. But there have been so many migrants crossing the channel in small boats. Since the beginning of the year, about 45,000 have thus arrived on English shores compared to 28,526 in 2021. And 4 migrants, including a teenager, lost their lives attempting the crossing on December 14, just over a year after 27 people died in similar circumstances. In April, Boris Johnson's government reached an agreement with Kigali to deport to Rwanda asylum seekers, regardless of their origin, who arrived illegally on British soil, a policy designed to discourage crossings of the English Channel in small boats, but which has been widely criticized and challenged in court. No deportation has yet taken place. A first flight planned in June was cancelled after a decision by the European Court on Human Rights, which called for a thorough review of the policy. Now that the court has given its decision, the government of Rishi Sunak wants to move quickly.
Ukrainian President Zelensky has delivered a historic speech from the United States Capitol, expressing gratitude for American support in fighting Russian aggression since the war began. Now, along Zelensky's gratitude was a plea emphasizing that his armed forces are outnumbered and outgunned by the Russian military even as they fight on. Zelensky's visit to Washington marks his first trip outside his homeland since it was invaded months ago, to set a course for the future of the war alongside a key Western ally.
Thus far, they've stood alone, and you haven't stood alone. You have had significant help. We've never stand alone. You will never stand alone. When Ukraine's freedom was threatened, the American people, like generations of Americans before us, did not hesitate.
Ukraine is alive and kicking. Ukraine holds its lines and will never surrender. Financial assistance is also critically important, and I would like to thank you very much. Thank you for both financial packages you have already provided us with and the ones you may be willing to decide on. Your money is not charity. It's an investment in the global security and democracy that we handle in the most responsible way.
Kremlin has said that the U.S. states offering Patriot missile system to Ukraine and a lack of discussion on peace talks is evidence the U.S. was fighting a proxy war with Russia. Away from Russia to England is the unveiling of new designs for British pound bank notes by the Bank of England that featured the image of King Charles III. The bank reveals that the notes will enter circulation by mid-2024, and nothing about the design will change apart from the image of the monarch. Notes showing the image of the Queen will remain in use, and new notes will only be printed to replace existing ones that are damaged or to meet the need for additional currency. This is in line with guidance from the royal household to minimize the environmental and financial impact of the change. The new bill were unveiled days after the British Royal Mint tried to generate interest in a commemorative coin showing an image of the king by making a joke on social media, which confused many citizens. Let's pause here for a break, and I'll be back with more stories. Don't go away. Welcome back. The program is still Global Update, where we talk about different issues from around the world. Moving on, the World Bank has revealed that Uganda's economy is expected to grow to 5% before the end of this year.
Uganda's economy started to recover following the reopening in January 2022 after 2 years of COVID-19 restrictions. The World Bank says the growth is attributed to the strong performance in the services and industrial sector, a resilient private sector, and a pickup in domestic demand.
The outlook in our baseline for Uganda for FY23 is 5.5%, and then we expect that to improve or to increase slightly to 6% by FY24. And this will largely be driven by construction, so infrastructure construction to facilitate production of oil.
However, the rising food and energy prices pushed inflation to a 10-year high of 10.7% in October 2022. This has mostly affected poor households by increasing food insecurity in some parts of the country. But the World Bank says Uganda should look into new export markets outside East Africa.
To accelerate growth in incomes and also to lift Uganda's population out of poverty, the economy will need to grow even more rapidly, more sustainably, and more broadly in order to include all segments of the population in its benefits. Therefore, strengthened regional trade or international trade is one of the clear ways to go.
But for this to work, the World Bank proposes that Uganda must reduce ad hoc tariff increases, adopt modern technologies to boost agricultural productivity, and strengthen quality standards. The prolonged conflict in Ukraine and the adverse weather conditions due to climate change pose a serious risk to the Ugandan economic outlook. But the World Bank believes the African Continental Free Trade Agreement can unlock new opportunities for the country. And for Uganda to fully benefit, economic experts say the private sector and all value chain actors like local producers should be present in all trade negotiations.
An agreement gives you market access, and that's why we are saying we have continental free trade area, the market is there, so many people, it's a potential. But it's about putting in place actions that can enable you to enter those markets and sustain your presence in those markets.
This will require the government to avail more resources for trade and investments in order to take advantage of the expanded market access.
Elsewhere, the government of DRC Congo and rebel groups have agreed to a ceasefire.
In the Kenyan capital Nairobi, the Democratic Republic of Congo's government and armed rebel groups have agreed to a ceasefire in the latest round of peace talks. The talks involve the current presidents of Kenya, Burundi, the DRC, Rwanda, and Uganda, as well as former Kenya President Uhuru Kenyatta, who acted as the facilitator of the peace process. Representatives of armed groups in the DRC were also present. All parties signed agreements on a raft of key issues, including a ceasefire and allowing emergency humanitarian relief to reach the conflict-affected areas. Kenyatta said 2 follow-up meetings will be held in the DRC cities of Goma and Bunia next month, which will assess the progress of the new agreements and begin engagements on the medium and long-term peace agenda. The M23 rebel group, which had been leading an offensive in the eastern DRC, was not represented in the talks, but says it's ready to withdraw from occupied territory and will support regional peacemaking efforts. The conflicts between the DRC government forces and the M23 group have displaced hundreds of thousands of residents in the eastern part of the country. The UN says some 680,000 people are in need of humanitarian assistance.
And to Zambia, President Hichilema said his government is considering introducing voluntary national service to young people to instill discipline and patriotism among youths. President Hichilema says he has made the proposal to the defense minister and defense chiefs to find a way of reintroducing the program.
They are resilient and disciplined. This is why they are called the Green Army. These Zambia National Service soldiers braved the heavy rains for close to 2 hours during the service Golden Jubilee, which was held in Chongwe. The celebrations were held at the Chongwe unit, where in 1979, ZNS officers killed 21 Rhodesian invaders who had strayed into Zambia to bomb the Chongwe Bridge. President Hakainde Hichilema officiated at the event, and he had a word for the current generation.
But the commitment of individuals like Corporal Cantini to defend our bridge against aggression, unwarranted aggression, I must say, from the Rhodesian side is really what we should all emulate as citizens, the young people over there. We enjoy the freedom we do today because of people like Corporal Cantini and others.
President Hichilema, who underwent the mandatory ZNS training at Mushiri Camp in Ndola, says he's proposing the reintroduction of national service for youths on a voluntary basis.
What we're considering for now, further discussions are on, is at least to introduce voluntary national service training for those young people who would wish to go through the process. We should get to that very quickly, and I lay it further on the table of the commander and other chiefs, service chiefs here. Let us, and the defense minister, home affairs minister, and cabinet, let us put this on the table. I think it's good for our country.
Despite being a military wing, the Zambia National Service plays a huge role in various sectors of the economy.
In the area of infrastructure development, the service, through its initial Builders Brigade program, has participated in the construction of the Tanzania-Zambia railway line and the Tanzania-Zambia Mafuta pipeline under the supervision of the Chinese contractors. Participation in the construction of the old city market, as well as the recent refurbishment of the same gutted city market.
The Ministry of Defense has pledged its support to ZNS in its drive to provide food security in the nation.
We are also committed to significantly contribute to the promotion of good national nutrition. The efforts are also meant to feed into the national goal of eliminating hunger by 2030, in line with Sustainable Development Goal number 2, which aims at attaining zero hunger, to which Zambia is a signatory.
The Zambia National Service was established in 1971, and it clocked 50 years in 2021. But because of the coronavirus restrictions implemented last year, the Golden Jubilee celebrations could not be held until now. Several former defense chiefs, cabinet ministers, defense attachés from embassies accredited to Zambia, and Chief Wunda Wunda of the Soli people also took part in the celebrations.
And elsewhere, Rwandan government has assured the Burundian government partnership in the voluntary repatriation of Burundi refugees in Rwanda. This is after the continued campaign of the government of Burundi to sensitize Burundian refugees in Rwanda to voluntarily go back home.
Baboda in Bugesera district, the governors of the eastern and southern province, Emmanuel Gasana and Dadis Kaitesi, welcomed the delegation from Burundi led by the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Defense of Burundi, Lieutenant General of Police André Ndayambaje, and the governors of Kirundo, Kayanza, and Bururi. It is a visit intended to sensitize Burundian refugees to voluntarily return in Burundi. In the discussions between both sides that took place at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, the permanent secretary in this ministry, Clementine Mukeka, assured that Rwanda is ready to contribute for the sensitization of the Burundian refugees to return home be successful. This is where the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Defense of Burundi, Lieutenant General of Police André Ndayambaje, iterated on the good relations between the two countries. We thank the government of Rwanda for they acquired these refugees as well as their contribution for the first repatriation of refugees in 2020 and 2021. We are here to emphasize the friendship between these two states and the political will of Burundi in emphasizing on the strong good relations with your country. We are also here to hear from the leaders of Rwanda, discuss on the possible way to use in the repatriation of refugees. On this first day of their visit in Rwanda, the Burundi delegates had discussions with the refugees representatives living across Rwanda, discussions that the Burundian refugees state that it is a milestone, as explained by their representative, Patrice Nadohoka. We did not know that they would come here to see us. For them to be here is a great step we appreciate. Another thing is that Burundi's new president is willing to better things in our country. And we had a request to make that some of the refugees had possessions like houses, lands that were taken, as well as the money from accounts. All these to be given back as the EAC concluded that the presidential term we fled from was not true. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Defense of Burundi, Lieutenant General of Police André Ndayambaje, points out that the issues demonstrated by the refugee representatives living in cities are to be presented to the government for them to be solved. We understand that for a refugee to return back for the issues they fled from to have ended. We had their request. Now we can say that the issues they fled from have now ended. But for those still having issues, they will be presented to the government for them to be solved. Because repatriation is voluntary, but also has to be safe. In Rwanda, there are at least 49,000 Burundian refugees. Philippe Abishuti, the permanent secretary in the ministry in charge of emergency management, states that Rwanda appreciates the Burundi's move of repatriating refugees. We shared also on our experience and told them how this is the first step, because for someone who fled from his country to return, it's for the government to ensure him that the issues that he fled from are no longer there, and that problems still found can be solved along the way. In the repatriation of refugees, this is the first step, and we appreciate that Burundi did it. These discussions will help both the government and the refugees to understand the situation for a safe repatriation. In 2015, about 74,000 refugees from Burundi came to Rwanda due to political insecurities that rose after the blockade of a coup d'etat against President Peter Nkurunziza. But from 2020 until now, the repatriated are 30,000. In 2020, the repatriated were 7,894. In 2021, they were 21,631, and in 2022, the repatriated are 790.
Still in Burundi, the country has won the race of speakership of the 5th East African Legislative Assembly. This came after the stepping down of all the candidates from the South Sudan, making Burundi's candidate unopposed.
Since the establishment of the Regional Assembly in 2001, 5 speakers from Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda and 2 from Uganda served a 5-year term of speakership position in East African Legislative Assembly. On Monday, 19 December 2022, the 5th East African Legislative Assembly sworn in its new members, and some of the new elected members expect a lot to be done to make sure that some of the challenges, such as insecurity in the region, can be solved.
As you know, peace and security is the prerequisite to socio-economic and political integration. We need to have peace in our region. Unfortunately, there are still conflicts and armed conflicts here and there. We still have genocide ideology in the region. We still have challenges of terrorism, human trafficking, transboundary crimes. I think we need to come together as a community and each and everyone to fulfill their expectations, their requirements, so that we can live peacefully as neighbors in this community. And then the other issue where we have to strengthen is on the issue of accountability. We need to hold our partner states and the Secretariat and all the institutions of the EAC accountable. Every dollar that is spent, that comes from our taxpayers, all the involvement partners, as an assembly through the respective committees, we have to ensure that the money is spent well, that every leader in the community is accountable for their role, that the various decisions undertaken by the council, by our heads of state, by even this assembly are implemented, because we still have a challenge of implementation.
And also work to make sure with other colleagues of mine in the community that the community is united in its foreign policy, it is united in its quest for peace and stability, such that development can prosper equally and equally to all the members of the community. Again, in the cardinal objective of the community itself is that the member state of the communities and the people should trade together so that there is an access to market opportunities for all. And in that direction, I will make sure that laws that are friendly and conducive to advance trade among the member states.
Honorable Mathias Harebamungu, Rwanda Member of Parliament, is so grateful for the Republic of Rwanda to allow him to represent the country, and he is very confident that, together with other partner states, East Africa will achieve its goals.
I have to thank the President of Rwanda because he is the one who delegated us. So having selected me among the Rwandans who are above 13 million and pick me as a single citizen to represent the community, I am really very thankful to the President and to the RPF. But as we are here coming from different parties, I can show that we will work as a team and determined to help to work with our brothers and see how really our East African Legislative Assembly can show up and had a great vision within the region, our continent Africa, and the world.
The inauguration of the 5th East African Legislative Assembly ceremony was attended by the former speakers of EARA, and Tuesday, 20th December 2022, the elected members are expected to vote for the speaker of this assembly, and the battle will be between Sudan and Burundi.
That's Global Update this week. Join us for another episode of the program. My name is Patricia A. Semiluba. Let me leave you with these words of the season that says, "May the good tidings of the season be with you now and always. Merry Christmas."